好，大把嘅特備，香港四徑大步走導演 Robin Lee。Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. 你點樣去決定會拍呢套香港四徑大步走嘅咧？即係你本身係咪有啲個人經歷令到你好想拍呢個咁嘅運動？本身係咪一個又係越野啊或者長跑愛好者咧？
The Four Trails kind of started in 2017. My background is in action sports, so I used to film skiing for an American company, and I filmed skiing, I filmed surfing, and I did those overseas. And whenever I came back to Hong Kong, I always felt like something was missing. I wanted to be in the mountains. And around that same time, my older brother started to trail run. And so he would be, sending photos of the mountains that he was on, and I would be like, wow, these mountains are incredible. So it made me want to go out as well. And I also wanted to film it because I thought it was beautiful. So we made a short film called Why I Run, which is just me filming my brother, who was the producer of the film. And it was really fun. We went to all these different locations in Hong Kong I had not been before. And after that, it was kind of like, what's the next thing that we could do in trail running? And Ben knew about this event called the Hong Kong Four Trails Ultra Challenge. And he told me, it's a challenge where people try and run all four trails in one continuous go with no sleep, and it's 300 kilometers in total. And I was like, wow, that sounds that sounds crazy. Let's make a film about this. And so we approached Andre, and at the time I was still quite young in my filmmaking career, so I thought I was going to make like a 10-minute video for YouTube. That was the goal in my head, is like making a 10-minute video for YouTube. And that 10-minute film turned into a 40-minute film called Breaking 60. And at the time, no one had ever broken 60 before in the challenge. So it was the first year that someone did it, which was done by Tom Robertshaw and Stone Chang. And as I was making that, I was also learning about the Four Trails. So I was filming and learning about it. And so when I finished it, we were super happy with it. And then a few years later, Andre asked me, he goes, some people are going to try and break 50 hours this year. Do you want to make the sequel Breaking 50? And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that, because your challenge is still about breaking 60 to be a finisher or to be a survivor in 72 hours. And I had been friends with Andre since the first film, and so I knew that he selected really interesting people to take part. Only 18 to 25 take part every year. And I had also discovered more about the actual Four Trails, like the best parts about them, the hardest parts about them, the most unique parts about them. So I said no to making a sequel called Breaking 50, but I said, I want to make a film which encompasses everything that this event stands for, which is people who are trying to break records, but then also people who are just trying to survive in 72 hours, and other people who are trying to break 60 for the first time. So I wanted to tell the stories, and everyone who takes part has their own interesting, unique story for why they want to do it. There's no medals for coming first, there's nothing for coming last, there's nothing, it's just a personal challenge. And so I thought that that's the film I want to make, a film about the people that are doing it. But because I'd also discovered so much about Hong Kong, I also thought, let's showcase Hong Kong via these trails, hopefully like no one's seen before. So that's what kind of drove me back to make this next film, which was Four Trails.
見到即係香港嗰個即係好特別嘅地勢，就係即係個自然景觀同埋個城市之間距離好近嘅。有一段好得意啊，即係見到啲參賽者咧，中間會走落藍田度買嘢食，跟住會坐地鐵嘅，好有趣嘅嗰啲係。你點樣將呢種咁有趣嘅畫面帶俾觀眾去感受得到咧？
Hong Kong, from an outside perspective, most people would think of it as a bustling city, sky rises. But very rarely do they know about the city landscape. And so I think that that's something which I don't think any other country really has, is the city right next to the mountains. And when we say right next to the mountains, from my own house, I can get to the top of a mountain in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's that easy. And when you're there, you have this incredible view over Hong Kong. So, you know, there wasn't really much I needed to do to showcase that. You know, we put drones in the sky, and people can see it. So I think that that's just such an amazing thing that Hong Kong has to offer. And, you know, one of the trails goes through an MTR station, Lambton MTR, to get from one side of Hong Kong to the other side of Hong Kong. And that's, you know, that I don't think there's any trail, you know, mountain trail in the world which has a subway in the middle of it. And for a runner, when you kind of get to the MTR station, it's kind of like a natural break.
Yeah.
They get to rest and recover. And I think what's so funny about it as well is that no one realizes on the subway that these people have just run 150 kilometers already. And so they're exhausted on the MTR. But then also, when you stop for like a certain period of time, your muscles can also become colder, and, you know, trying to get yourself back, motivated back to run in the mountains again, especially when you finish on mountains like the Twins, which are just staircases straight up. You know, you're on the MTR and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got this crazy difficult mountain to climb. So there's all these elements that are part of this challenge, which are just so unique to Hong Kong, which no one else has. And they can both be fun, they can be torturous, and they can be beautiful.
我哋見到裏邊都好多參賽者，咁但係咧，你都會選擇㗎嘛？點樣去揀？即係你認為你想拍嘅參賽者，佢哋背後有啲咩故事吸引到你而揀咗佢嘅咧？係
In the movie, in the particular in 2021, there were 18 participants who participated, and all of them had done the challenge before. So they had been past survivors or past finishers. And so we already had some knowledge about who they were, what made them unique. You know, I would study them, I would find out anything that SCMP had written or other magazine and try to discover about them. And we would also meet with as many of them as we could before the challenge even began, just to get to understand them better. So actually out of the 18, we interviewed 15 of them. And, you know, we would have done more, but resources wise, it was done by myself, my brother, and one other. We all had other jobs to do, you know, it's a self-product, so we couldn't do everyone. And we interviewed them all because in a documentary, you never really know what is going to happen. You never know whose story is going to come to the forefront, who's going to have the most interesting journey. And so we had them all, or as many as we could, to give ourselves the most options. And during the event itself and during the editing process, that's sort of when, you know, you start to see who is got the most strong story, who had the most interesting journey, and that kind of directs you into the people that you follow. But even in pre-production, you know, when I remember doing an interview with Nikki, and following Nikki, we went and interviewed Chang, and I had never met Chang before until this moment. And a lot of the other interviews you do in trail running, everyone is quite more serious, very deep and emotional about what they do. And Chang, we interviewed him, and immediately he just starts swearing and saying how horrible everything is, and it was just really, really funny and very refreshing. So even before, we're like, okay, this is a guy who we need to follow, because he's going to give us a very good contrast against someone else who is maybe a little bit more serious and, you know, like Salomon, very planning and engineering. So that's sort of how we sort of developed it. But there are some, you know, one story which comes to mind which is really, really touching is the story of Pong. And he was one of the last people that we interviewed before the event. And Andre sent us this photo of his leg, which you see in the film, a very, very bad injury.
Yeah.
And this was 3 weeks before it started. And, you know, we're kind of thinking to ourselves, is there any point in doing this interview, because there's no way he's going to start, so we're wasting our time by doing this. But we thought, the event is about, perseverance. It's about pushing through. So let's just go ahead with the interview. Let's find out what his story is, and we did. And then he turns up to the start of the event, and you're like, okay, great, but how long is he going to last? That was the question. How long will he last? And I don't know if I'm allowed to spoil anything, but he lasts a very long time. And I think that's just incredible. And I think that's what the film stands for. It's what Hong Kong stands for, is people just pushing beyond what is capable, having such a strong willpower when things are not going your way, just to keep at it. And, I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it, but I remember when he came to the Moyo postbox, and it was just an incredible moment. There were only 10 to 15 people there. So, not like when Jackie arrives and everyone's cheering, it's a quiet moment, but you could just feel how emotional, how special that moment was. Okay. So, yeah, the stories that we chose to follow kind of naturally came to the forefront by what happened during the event.
我哋見到即係裏邊個製作非常之好高水準咯，我評論嗰時都講過好高水準，尤其是攝影方面啦。你本身係點樣 plan 去拍呢個 project 嘅咧？有冇啲即係好特定嘅器材啊，或者你有好多人去幫你去完成呢個 project 嘅咧？
Yeah, so one key thing that we wanted to showcase was the trails themselves. And I filmed a lot of trail running events before. And in an event like this one, they run through the night a lot. So if you have a camera there, you can't see them. And you can describe to people, oh, they're climbing Pat Sing Lang at 3 a.m. in the morning, and Pat Sing Lang is one of the most difficult mountains. But then there's no visual to be able to show that. So we really wanted to show people the whole trail. And so we, during I would say the peak of COVID, when everything was shut down, I spent 2 months straight just waiting for the best weather conditions to go out with a drone and basically do the entire route via a drone. And in the movie, have this white line that goes through everything. So as a viewer, you can really experience every single step of their journey, where they're going, how big the mountains are, like every little detail. And so that process took, 2 to 3 months to do, because sometimes it's smoggy in Hong Kong, sometimes it's not. And that was done by myself and my brother. But, we were blessed during the actual shooting days that the weather was so good as well. But during the event, we had a main crew of about 4 filmers, 4 to 5 filmers, who were there for the entire 3 days. During the event, we had about maybe 15 people in total to help us film. But they would join for 1 day, they would join for 2 days, some would join for just 3 hours. So, like I was mentioning with the MTR, we just had one guy for 1 day, just going back and forth on the MTR station the whole day, just capturing these moments. We had someone staying in Sheko all day like that. So people came and helped us during different times of the event. So we did have a big crew, but not the whole crew didn't work for the whole 3 days, except for about 4 of us in total. Yeah.
好有趣，見到畫面就係話咧，要見到啲航拍會跟到嗰個參賽者喺嗰個時候咧，就係啱啱喺個山上面嘅。因為你諗下，如果你航拍，你揾翻嗰個人好細粒咧，好高難度喎，我覺得係。你點樣去 plan 呢樣嘢嘅咧？係。
Yeah. So before the event, we basically had all the runners sort of estimated times. So we knew roughly at what time they would be where. And also before the challenge, I personally had been to most of the locations. And so I had said to myself, in Tai Mo Shan, I want to film with a drone here and with a gimbal here. It's the best location. Ma On Shan, let's get a drone and let's shoot with a tripod here, long lens shots. And so we sort of had an idea on each location how we wanted to film it in the best way possible. But of course, like you mentioned, people are all over the place. On the first day, it's relatively simple. We had 3 teams. And so as the runners would come along, they would meet the first team, they would film them all, and then they would move to the next location. The runners would continue to the second team and then to the third team, and they would just leapfrog their way over. But then on day 2 and day 3, that's when runners are all over the place, which makes the logistics incredibly difficult. And yes, we had their sort of estimated times, but as you see in the film, it doesn't always go to schedule, and actually most of the time it doesn't go to schedule. So we have GPS trackers on them, which is a safety aspect for Andre as well, because people have gone the wrong way and got lost before. So they have GPS trackers on, which made it very, very helpful for us to shoot. But Ben would be looking at the GPS map, and he would be like, okay, so Salomon is a little bit slower this time. So instead of having 2 filmers where we originally planned, let's just have 1, and the second filmer can move here. And that would just continue throughout the next few days. So that's how we were in the right place at the right time. But then, you know, with a documentary, you never know what's going to happen. So of course, there's some elements of luck where, you know, you were just in the right place at the right time. But because we had made such a big plan of all the key locations, it definitely helped us choose where to go and how we wanted to film when we were in those locations. So even when we were tired on day 3, and we were also sleep deprived. I had 2 hours sleep throughout the whole 3 days. So me trying to make a decision of where to go and what to film, if I hadn't have made this plan, then I would just have been totally lost. I'd be like, no idea what to do, but luckily we had a plan to stick to. Of course we have to change it, but at least there was a little bit of something to help me even in my sleep deprived state.
咁拍完咁大量嘅即係 footage 翻到去之後咧，處理個 editing 嗰時，有冇話即係點樣去排嗰個創作啊，或者係即係點樣去砌翻個故仔出嚟？好有趣，我見到就係話咧，有好多啲即係 flashback 會見翻個參賽者喺跑之前嘅一啲 interview 啊，或者係嗰個狀態去塑造翻成個人物好立體出到嚟。我覺得呢個好欣賞呢套片嗰個 editing 嘅地方。可唔可以講多少少呢樣嘢咧
？Yeah, so I think in total, I mean, I could be wrong here, but there's roughly around 200 hours of footage. The first step, actually, the first step was really hard. I was trying to work out what was the best way to approach this. And so what I did first was I went through the entire event of each filmer and I put everything into sequence. So I put my footage in a timeline, and then I put the next person's film and put it in the timeline. So essentially I could watch the entire event unfold from everyone's different cameras. And that timeline was 24 hours long. But it's helpful because I didn't know what other people had shot. They had told me. And so even sometimes I would see some of their footage and be like, whoa, I can't believe we got that. That's amazing. So I did that. And then I also, I kind of knew the stories, or I was trying to find the stories from each of the participants, what made them personally unique. And so, Salomon's one was trying to make this engineering person. We filmed a lot of footage of his training runs. We filmed his Excel spreadsheet to tell the story of, this engineer approach to the story. We had Stone's side of the Stone story, which was essentially an elite runner. Stone is one of the best in Hong Kong. He's been sponsored by the North Face for a long time. He is one of the best runners for a very long time. So we wanted to, that's his story, just telling that. So all these characters, we wanted to have their own unique approach, how they would approach it. And so I had my timeline of 24 hours, and I would slowly reduce that. So it would be 24 hours, then I would go through, start deleting the stuff which was repeated. That ends up at 15 hours, go through it all over again. That ends up at 10 hours, go through it all over again. That ends up, and slowly just bringing it down to the best parts until I think I had about 2 hours of footage of just like the best event. And then what I wanted to do is, I didn't, like you mentioned, I didn't want to just throw them all at the start and be like, okay, these are the people, follow them.
Yep.
I really wanted to bring them in at moments where their story made sense to what was happening. So, Pong is a great example. He arrives at the end of the Macalos Trail and he's, doing up his leg, his bandages. And so as an audience, you're kind of thinking to yourself, what is he doing and why is he talking about stitches? And then you tell his story. So it flows really naturally. I really wanted to start with Stone and Sarah because Stone, he's trying to break 50 hours. He's this amazing person. And then Sarah is a completely different style to who Stone is, someone who is just trying her best. She went from failing to succeeding. So she is a complete contrast to Stone. So I wanted them both to be at the start together so audience members could, relate to someone different. And so that's sort of how I interjected them into the story, is just finding the best moments which fit their personalities. So, Will at the very end, he's a stubborn person, he keeps going, so bringing him in closer to the end. Finding the right spots to put them in so the story wasn't a linear story.
我哋見到個古仔，除咗喺即係香港一個好靚嘅背景之外咧，仲見到一種好香港嘅精神。即係我哋好多觀眾睇，哇，好熱血喎，好香港喎，成套戲。咁你點睇呢套戲同香港嘅文化或者精神拉上咗關係？尤其是你一個即係外國人身份啦。
So I was actually born in Hong Kong, born and raised in Hong Kong. I've lived here now for 35 years, although I had a little stint in the UK for 6 years. The film really sort of represents what I feel Hong Kong is all about. So when Andre did the challenge himself, no one told him to do it. It was up to him to decide, I want to go and run 4 trails in 4 days. And then people joined him the next following years, and again, no one told them that they had to do this. And then it comes to the film, and no one told me to make a film about the 4 trails. It was a passion project of mine and my brothers, and we wanted to do it. And so we kind of just threw ourselves into this project wanting to make something amazing. And I feel like there's a lot of people in Hong Kong who are the same way. Hong Kong is an incredibly busy city, bustling city. People, they've got a lot of hardships, but everyone is trying to persevere through life. Everyone's trying to do something new, something great, trying to challenge themselves. Even though the film is about runners, trying to do something crazy, and I'm not trying to tell people, go run 300 kilometers, that's silly, but hopefully when they watch it, they can see themselves in maybe one of the runners. They see Sarah's story and it inspires them like, okay, I want to do that too. Or they see someone else's like, I want to, push myself in this way. I want to try something I've never done before. And so I think the whole event, the whole film, everything embodies the spirit of Hong Kong. And I'm happy that, when people tell me that as well, it's like an honor that people say that to me, that we managed to do that. So
你點樣去覺得呢套戲咧帶俾人們，即係譬如如果佢哋面對啲挑戰，唔一定係跑步嘅，去工作上、學業上啊，其他方面嘅挑戰，有咩可以激勵到佢哋咧？
So I think there are multiple ways which I hope people take from this film. It depends on the person. You might take it at face value, and if you're a sports athlete, you can watch it as purely a sport film, seeing people take on incredible challenge and want to push yourself to do something great. Maybe you want to participate in the 4 trails one year, so it motivates you to go running. Maybe you're an athlete who is a swimmer, so it motivates you to go swimming more. You see what they've done. Or you could just be a regular person who maybe doesn't do sport or hiking at all. And I think the stories in this film really resonate, I hope so anyway, with people who they're not into trail running or sport. They can still relate to the people taking part of the challenge. And they'll watch the film and they can see people really persevering and pushing themselves past what they believed was possible before. And they can take that into their everyday lives. and maybe it's to do with work, and they have a project that they really want to do, or they want to start a new company or something like that, and they see people and they go like, okay, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. It may not be the same challenge, the same project, but I can do something great too. Or it could be anything with your family or friends, just something which you can relate to and you can put into your everyday life. And I think one of the big things that I wanted to do with the film was just have such a diverse range of people featuring in the film, and I hope that there's one person that you and the audience can relate to. So while you may not relate to one of the characters, you're going to relate more to the other. It's maybe you don't relate to all of them, and that's okay, but you can see yourself in one of them. Everyone is different. Everyone's got a completely different reason for taking on the challenge. And so if you can be inspired just by one of them or by all, that would be one of the key things which I want people to take away from this and bring into their everyday life.
今日好多謝香港四徑大步走導演 Robin Lee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And I hope you to see you in your second film. Okay.
Hopefully it's not 300 kilometers again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.